We don't want to lead with technology and say, this is what the technology does, and so therefore you should use it to do those things. It's what do we need to do, and then how can we implement and adapt the technology to meet the needs and the goals of any given client or engagement.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Tiffany Anderson, here with Jim Keller, co-founder, CTO, and partner of Eastern Standard. Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I'd love to hear more about how you guys have evolved over the last 10 years.
I was running a company that was purely focused on the technology side, and we would partner with design agencies, marketing agencies, creative agencies, and do work together. And through that business model, came to know a particular agency very well. They were a brand design agency out of Philly, which is where we were based out of. And after a few years of working together as strategic partners, we decided to bring the companies together so that we would have the design, brand, marketing, and also the technology under one roof.
Can you maybe share a little more about your approach to integrated branding?
Our digital projects will almost always start with some kind of surveys or workshops or even direct interviews with prospective customers to understand exactly what needs to go into the brand and the marketing and the messaging. Or conversely, if we've got clients who've already done that work, a lot of our clients come to us, maybe there's a branding agency already in the mix, maybe they've got an internal brand agency. We're always going to make sure that our team goes into the engagement, goes into their work, understanding the underpinnings of the strategy. Otherwise, it gets lost and you end up with something that doesn't actually accommodate or account for what the original reason to do the project to begin with was.
And how would you say that helps influence how your agency decides which solutions or technologies they build?
We really like to understand what the specific needs of the project are. Are there very deep technical integration needs? Are there really extensive design or animation needs or motion graphics, whatever the case may be? But what we try to do is really understand where are the opportunities here and where are the major challenges, and how should that influence our technology decisions? Because we don't want to lead with technology and say, this is what the technology does, and so therefore you should use it to do those things. It's what do we need to do, and then how can we implement and adapt the technology to meet the needs and the goals of any given client or engagement.
How would you say this approach really helps your clients?
We want to be very mindful that every client and engagement is different. We don't want to lean on, this client's in the same industry as the last one, or this client's just like that one, and so therefore we know what to do here. And so regardless of how much we think we know going into an engagement, we still want to do the exploration of, what is their specific market looking like? What are their offerings that are, the biggest benefit to them? What are their best sellers? What are the places they want to grow and achieve? How is, the broad market looking at that? And then what is the deeper analytics about their existing website or some of the other tools we can use to assess that actually tell us about what we need to do for this client specifically.
Would you say that's one of the largest things that differentiates Eastern Standard from other players in the industry?
That's definitely one of them. And we even hear about that when we bring on new team members who have been in other agencies that, they're very interested and surprised at the amount of kind of upfront investigation and exploration work we do when we have the chance. Or again, if the client already has it, we make it a point to really understand and document and figure out what the strategy is. So I think that's definitely a differentiator because, sometimes the way I pitch it to clients is, we can skip that part and we can all lean on best practices. And that sometimes works. Sometimes we do know enough to say, listen, we don't have to get too deep here. You have a good understanding of your audience. We know what we're doing. But if at any point somebody, maybe somebody at the top of your organization or anywhere else wants to know what data or what was the foundation of the decisions you made in design and content, and you want to have an answer to that.
When it comes to your work, what are you most passionate about?
Any project or engagement that really asks us to bring the entire team to bear. So we do lots of engagements where it's just a particular thing. Maybe it's just audience research or just design or just implementation. A lot of our clients do a lot more than that, but I really like it when we all have to come together and we have to have, the SEO strategist talking to the content strategist, to the UX strategist, to the designer, to the technical people, and all working together because we've got kind of a bigger problem to solve. And then for me personally, I really like when we get to do clever technical things. But my background is originally in software engineering, so anything where we get to solve clever technical problems in some kind of clever way or something that we think, was the product of some very smart and innovative thinking. So I get very excited about those things as well.
Would you say a large percentage of the projects that you guys work on, you get to bring together that larger team, or is it diversified scope?
I would say it's a majority where there's at least a good handful of the different competencies and people on our team coming together to solve problems. So most of them do come together, and like let's say we're doing pure content engagement. We're writing content. Mm-hmm. We will probably still want our SEO strategists to take a look at what's going on there, even if it wasn't necessarily pitched as like this is an SEO project.
Right.
And so we do try to make sure that even if we're doing a more isolated engagement, that we are bringing our other competencies to bear, so that the client is going to get what they actually need out of the actual project.
With such a heavy focus on data, and knowing that you guys are big fans of large language models and AI, can you tell me maybe how you guys are using that or starting to implement that with clients and projects?
We found out that if we ingest your content from your website and we then ask the LLM a question about it, initially, if the LLM came back with a bad response, it was because we needed to do some more coding work. But after we got the code and the programming figured out, we started learning that if we ask the LLM a question after it ingests your website and it can't answer the question properly, or it gives a confusing answer, that's probably because your content is confusing. It's also led us to recommend that clients do actually add a little more prose content to their site, because we're learning that, at least for the moment, the LLMs really like to have text to chew on. And so we're saying if you want to have your product page or whatever the solutions page that you want to promote is, that's great. You can do the imagery and all the quick bullet points, but you should also find somewhere to basically explain to the LLM, like, this is what we offer, this is what we do, and this is who it's good for, in like very clear language, because it's picking up those signals a little better. And we know that Google is doing the same kind of summarization. So it's definitely driven our content strategy approach forward in a lot of ways.
Would you say that you've seen an increase in things like search position and things like that just through using your LLM?
We've been finding that as they've been making these algorithm changes, even some of the older school techniques are starting to work better than they used to, which is kind of strange. But my theory on that is that because the LLMs are doing a lot of work, and again, they're reading text, all of a sudden the text and the keywords and the phrases and things on the page are starting to matter and be weighted higher than they were before. So it's been kind of interesting. And, we have to be careful not to do like keyword stuffing or add like walls of text, right? Which is what we've always been trying to avoid. I would say it's difficult to pinpoint exactly how much the AI is kind of influencing what Google's doing, but we know it's there. And so we're just trying to stay ahead of it with maximizing content, and again, continuing to put like keywords, phrases, and making sure that the performance scores and things are all there. So I would say TBD on any sort of official answer, but we know they're doing it. We know they keep updating the algorithm. And so we kind of have to stay ahead of that game.
How do you envision your team taking that and continuing to expand, offerings or different elements of the business?
For coding augmentation, it's been great. For helping with like general, content tasks, moving content around, reformatting spreadsheets, things like that. So right now, as an augmentation tool, it's been really great for us as far as helping the team do more faster.
On the topic of AI expansion, how do you see AI expanding more into WordPress? Or maybe what do you see as the intersection between the two of them?
At the start, I think it's augmentation of things that would otherwise require you to do kind of like a very rote kind of point and click process. Like, let's say I want to create a page that's just like another page, but I don't want to necessarily duplicate it. I can ask WordPress to do things, ask it to find content for me, or give me some kind of report like, how many pages do we have that mention, such and such word? Or, do we have content that is, show me a list of all the content that is, before 2019 and has the following words in it or something like that. So I think that's where it's going to start. From there, again, I think it's going to be a question of, can it get to a point where asking it to do, kind of true generative creation of a layout of a page is going to give sensible results. But I think we're getting close. I think that's where you're going to start to see traction.
Are there any hesitations or reservations maybe around using AI to help drive content or create new content?
Speaking just broadly about the internet, I think there's a risk that the quality of content will continue to degrade, and that, the AI will get into sort of a a loop of ingesting its own stuff. And so, will we be generating new and better content and copy? Then you have the question of, where does originality come from at that point? Because the AI obviously ingested all of our original content from, the broader web, and it's using it to kind of generate what it's doing. So I think it's difficult to say exactly where it's headed, but everybody's trying to figure it out. So
of course.
I trust that we'll come to some reasonable conclusion.
When do you guys usually try to recommend headless as a WordPress solution to your clients?
I think the clearest example that we have of when headless seemed to be, the right tool for the use case was we did a website for a radio station, and they needed a persistent audio player at the top of the website, and we didn't want your audio stream to stop playing as you browse through the site. And so what we did is we recommended a headless approach where WordPress would drive the content on the back end, and then the front end is built on React with Next.js. And so in instances like that, where the player itself was kind of the use case to say this kind of has to be headless if we want this particular feature to work this way. For a lot of clients, it's like their website content never leaves their website. But if it does leave the website, if it's going to an app, or if it's going to digital signage, or it's going other places, having a centralized place to manage the content that is not intrinsically tied to a particular front end allows you to scale, allows you to create, kind of separate your front ends and your content, which in that model is very important.
So what would you say are the biggest advantages to using headless?
It's, again, the ability to distribute content to multiple front ends. There are also, I've heard folks talk about the ability to create, even if you're developing your internal team and what your capabilities and competencies are, because you can do a front end technology, let's say it's always JavaScript. You can be almost agnostic about what's on the back end at that point. And the front end team can always be able to interface with whatever's happening on the back end. And so you're able to kind of make sure that your front end team is always able to work in the same technology, always JavaScript, always Next. They're always plugging into whatever the back end is, but their ability to have a front end capable team that really doesn't have to worry too much about what the back end is. They just say, expose the data, and we're ready to go. So there's efficiencies to be gained there as well by creating that kind of consistent framework for your front end that can plug into wherever the data is coming from.
What about AI and headless? Do you see an intersection there, or is that maybe an area that your team has explored?
AI is good at taking data and allowing you to interact with it. And so if your data is nicely structured in some kind of semantic way, there's the opportunity to plug an AI into it and have it do something creative or interesting with it, or allow your end users to access that data in a different way. And I think that's one of the things that we're definitely going to see as far as, user expectations moving into the future, is that they're going to expect to be able to ask questions of your content and get answers based on, kind of an interactive model. And so again, if your data is stored in a headless fashion where it's nicely separated from whatever front end you've got, it's just another access point for the AI to get that data, to create like a vector database around it, and then allow people to ask questions to it and hopefully get meaningful answers.
What technologies do you see on the horizon that are really exciting you?
One of the things that we've been talking a lot about is the differentiation between content management and layout management. And I feel like this is still something that's not, fully solved yet across different CMSs. We've got Gutenberg, right? You've got Elementor. And so, we're very interested to see how people continue to evolve this question of how much are you asking the client to be a layout builder, and how much are they just managing content? And again, I think Gutenberg's been an interesting step forward. And again, like how we can better serve clients as far as allowing them to quickly and effectively manage content without having to worry too much about the layout, but give them the flexibility. And so again, I know Gutenberg's done a lot of work on this. I think there's more to go there. So we've been very interested to see, where Gutenberg and like ACF come together and kind of merge in some way to make, blocks that are easily manageable. And then again, a lot of the JavaScript front end stuff has been really interesting for us.
Are there any projects you have coming up with WP Engine that you're excited about?
We work with Huntington Learning Center, which is a franchise, K through 12 tutoring and prep center across the country. And they have about 200 plus websites, so there's one for every franchise. And we were able to get their team to expose this content, the content for all the franchise sites, hours, locations, contact information on the event bus. And using WordPress, we actually capture the data coming off the event bus, and we spin up a new website for the franchise based on the data coming across the bus. So when we got it all working and it was time to launch, we were able to hit the button and watch websites start to appear out of the data that was coming across the stream. So we've got it set up now to where they launch a new franchise, they add their content to their system, they put it up on the event bus, it comes over to WordPress, and a new website appears based on the content that's coming in.
Jim, it's been great talking with you. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited to see what else Eastern Standard has coming in the future.
Thanks for having me. It was great being here.
Absolutely.